There's no. Two other people actually said, so. Okay. I'm actually kind of surprised that. We got. Okay, we'll be calling this meeting in order. It's 6:31 p.m. First thing on the agenda. Don't need alternates, we have a forum. Are there any additions to the agenda? No additions to the agenda. And audience of citizens, do we have anybody here to speak tonight? So, okay. Any old business that we're gonna handle?
No.
Nothing, so straight to the issue. New business gonna be 566 Beachfront Road. Scott Dickinson and Wendy Field, and it's a notice of violation. Joe, you want to start off and give us the background?
Yeah, so Wendy and Scott started building a gravel road on their property. They initially talked with both the building inspector and the zoning enforcement officer, as far as what they needed to do, and they were told they were good to go. Unfortunately, the wetland permit process was skipped. I don't think for any blatant reasons, but a lot of times, they slipped through the crack. Building inspector didn't need to approve a building permit. The zoning guy said, nope, there's no zoning enforcement here. You can build a dirt driveway on your property if you want. But nobody was aware of the fact that there might be wetlands on the property. So
Just just to pass the obvious,
Yep.
Was there any maps or anything that the town had at its disposal that identified any wetlands?
no, if you look at the town GIS, there's no wetlands mapped.
Okay, so there's no obvious concern initially to do this.
Yeah.
We'll have a moment, and Keith, when we finish this initial part, and then I'll go to you, okay?
Yeah, so I was called out to 564, the Gardella property. And I spoke with the owners there. They expressed their concerns about the building of the road. Historically, there is a surface drainage issue where basically surface water runs from the east side of James Road all the way through eventually to these properties. It goes across the Magario property. Most of it's all surface water, some surface water. And it flows across the Dickinson property and flows onto the Gardella property, which is at 564. Historically, what was done is there was a trench excavated along the western property boundary, which is somewhat diagrammed on the site plan that you have there. That would catch some of the flows, and then they would be transferred to I'm going to call it an intermittent water course that flows across the Gardella property, east to west, and then eventually it carries it down across Route 165 to more wetlands there. So basically what it is, it's a lot of surface water that moves through there. Mainly not as much this time of the year, but in the springtime when the water tables are high, especially in the winter, you have frost in the ground and water can't permeate. So that's the basic issue there. So I went up to the Gardella property, I observed, what was going on as far as the road building. I ended up going out a second time with my soil logger, and I did inspect the Gardella property, and in that trench that runs parallel with the newly constructed road, there were wetland soils in several places. So it is a regulated area, and because they're building or disturbing land within 100 feet, they need to come for us for a permit. So that day I was out there, I actually mentioned it. I spoke with them. I hand delivered a cease and desist order for them to stop work until they applied for a wetlands permit. At that time, I also, we also talked and they said, well, can we continue working on other parts of the property? I said, yes, I have no problem with that. I just don't want to see any more direct activity as far as redoing the road. Subsequently, I don't know, a few days later, a load of gravel got delivered. The guy dumped it, obviously in the wrong place on the road. They notified me by email, said, hey, Joe, this was a mistake. Do you mind if we move the gravel away from the roadbed? And I said, yeah, absolutely, I don't have a problem with that. Last thing I wanted was a big pile of gravel with rain coming to, erode into the wetlands. So that's basically where we're at. I worked with them as far as developing an application. I told them to hire a soil scientist, which they did. You have that letter in front of you that basically states there are no wetlands on their property. But again, on the Gardella property, I feel those wetlands are probably within a couple of feet or less of the newly constructed road. So again, here we are as far as them requiring permit.
Okay. Did you have a comment, sir? Or something you wanted to
I
say?
just want to question the zoning, when somebody goes out there to look at something, that they don't recognize a natural sheet flow downhill. And the shrubs that are in the area, all the summer sweet, that's a dead giveaway that there's wetlands.
I'm not an expert, Joe is, so I would ask that, or pass that question to you.
Yeah, so what he's talking about is the sweet pepper bush, which is it's a water loving plant. It'll grow in wetlands, it'll grow in uplands. But generally when you see that, it's an indication that, it's wet ground, but not necessarily wetlands. Okay. And as far as the zoning enforcement officer, he's a zoning enforcement officer. He's not a wetlands guy. I wouldn't, I'm sure he can recognize obvious wetlands, but something like that. And I have to be honest, the first time I went out there and I met with these guys, I didn't suspect that there were wetlands there other than in the trench that's on the Gardella property. It wasn't until I stuck a soil auger in the ground and said, oh, look, we got wetland soil. So I wouldn't put it on the zoning guy that, I don't think he was negligent by saying, yeah, do whatever you want.
So it wasn't obvious until you actually took.
Until I actually, yeah, and I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't a soil scientist.
And this is only on the Gardella's property. Obviously, we have a soil scientist that said there's no wetlands on this property which they're working on.
Yep.
So we're dealing with an upland review issue.
Yep.
So. And can you characterize the actual wetlands where you found?
What it is, basically, it was a trench that was dug years ago, again, to try to intercept flows from their property onto the Gardella property and channel them, into the water course. I would say they're low functioning wetlands. It's a trench that's about 2 feet wide by about pushing maybe 50 feet long. And there are upland soils on both sides, on Mr. Gardella's property and on their property. It's just when water has a chance to sit for long periods of time, it will change the soil conditions to reflect hydric or wetland soils. So technically it is a wetland, it is a regulated area, but I would not say it's a high functioning wetland.
Basically a trench that's 2 by 50 with wetland soil.
It's a stormwater trench, like you would find in any roadside culvert.
Oh, and is likely, as you said, that any culvert that has water sitting in for that extended period of time.
You're gonna
soils
get
you'll find
those,
there?
you're gonna get those.
Okay, so this is pretty much a normal thing that will happen, even though the wetlands weren't there prior to it, that
Right.
it sat for long enough.
Right.
Okay. And forgive my ignorance, I just.
No, you're asking
I didn't know
fine questions.
personally if that was the case. All right, so we have that characterization of it, and what we're here for obviously is, the first of two, which is, this is just gonna be the approval of the application. And we've already had a notice of violation, we have the cease and desist, which is been carried out and monitored by the agent. And I guess what I'm looking for is just a, motion to approve the application.
Accept.
Accept,
We're gonna
I'm
accept.
sorry, to accept, that's right, we're next month. So to accept the application. There ain't a lot of us here, guys. It's all right, it's one of the three.
So is there anything to discuss besides just the accepting of the application?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll,
there is.
we'll accept it, and then the applicants can, speak as to, what they're doing and.
Okay, we're not approving it or anything.
No, that.
I'll make a motion to accept the application.
We'll second it. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion to accept the application, and it's been seconded. So I guess we'll go to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? And abstain. So the motion passes and the application is accepted. Now, moving forward from this, what I have seen and right here, but I'd like you guys to, if you would, just give us a quick synopsis of what happened, and if you can, and if you feel comfortable with that. If not, then we'll go forward from there. Would you guys, either you guys like to speak?
Yeah,
or-
I have one question.
Sure.
When you asked if there was any designated wetlands on any of the maps,
Yes,
and there was not.
right,
Is there going to be now?
there will.
So that gets revised, if you want to call it.
And I don't want to go too far ahead. There's no wetlands on your property. You already have a soil scientist say that, therefore your obligation's met. There is wetlands been identified on the other property, and so they would have to have a wetland delineation on that property, but they're not asking for a permit. So we're not going to require them to have that wetlands delineation. However, because wetlands have been identified on that property, they will always be on that property. Therefore, anything that happens on that property will require the wetland delineation, which you guys have already done with the soil scientist. And obviously it'll be annotated, and it's been now noted in this meeting, so it's an official meeting, therefore it's been put into record that there's wetlands on that property. So if any time that you want to do anything further on your property, and say you want to do something else, that you're in an upland review area based on the proximity to the wetlands, you'll have to get a wetland permit. The same will go to the other property. However, in order for them to do anything, they have to have that delineation. We have to know exactly where those wetlands are on that property. But that's all, pie in the sky, because obviously they're not in the application process. Yes, sir.
And how far do you have to stay away from the wetlands?
That actually is, once you're off the wetlands, and you can actually work in the wetlands.
I know
But
that.
with a permit, and in an upland review area, you still have to get the application done. So you have to have a
Where
wetland,
does that come from?
you put the application in, then you go to this meeting, and then we vote on the application to, accept it, and then there'll be another meeting, and then we'll go to the approval process. So, and that would be the normal way, but because of the things that have happened here, I'm actually gonna recommend that we kind of go outside of that. And here's the reason why, and we didn't talk about what actually is being put on the property, which is stone. And it's in an upland review area, based on, my reading, that this is a minor impact to an upland review area, therefore, we can actually give it to the agent to handle completely outside of the permit process. And, we will get to
It's
that.
part of the permit.
Oh, so it's part of the permit
It's
process.
administrative approval.
And that we can actually do tonight, in order that we don't have the other, the application meeting, we can actually give it to the agent. And he can actually do all of the work that we would normally have to sit and do. Now you guys were gonna, would you like to speak at all, or?
I just had one question.
Sure.
This theme, there was another property that abuts the Gardella property. I'm assuming if they ever do anything on that property, they also have to be notified of the wetlands.
Anything within
And-
100 feet on any front.
Okay,
It's gonna be, it's called an upland review area.
yeah,
So you have the wetland piece itself, and then you have 100 feet basically in a box around that entire area.
okay.
Anything that's gonna intrude upon that zone, you have to get the wetland permit for it. That's your property, their property, wherever it impacts.
And do you guys notify the other abutters so they're aware of that as well? Like, how does that work? So it would be up to them to if anything happens.
Yeah, and generally that, again, you guys slip through the cracks, and generally that gets caught like in the building permit process, so. If somebody wants to put up a shed or they want to do a driveway or whatever, it's either caught by the building inspector. Or
Or
the,
you've mentioned,
right, and then that's when I get involved, either online through the building permit process, which you guys didn't do because you weren't building anything.
Right.
Or I get notified by the zoning guy and says, Joe, they're doing a land disturbing activity. You need to review it. So then I go out on site and look at it and determine whether they're wetlands or not.
And seeing as it hasn't been delineated, how do we know where this 100 feet comes from and goes from? Well, we know there's just a little trench between the stone wall and the end of our property, and there's, like you said, it's
Well,
five foot.
for your purposes, I would figure your property line.
Yep.
The edge of your road is that much.
And right now, we're
You're this
using
far from the wetland.
his observance of the wetland soils as the delineated area.
Yeah, I didn't actually mark them out.
Right.
That, you know where that driveway is. If you
Yeah,
look
it's
at
a
that little
culvert, so-
swale, you can see water stained leaves in there and stuff. That's.
All right, so you had a question?
Yep, I don't have a question. I just want to go on record saying that it is gonna be an issue. Because they changed the whole sheet flow, it's gonna be an issue. I'm just letting down, you guys know that.
Okay,
Okay, that's all.
that's fine. And again, this board has the ability, just so you guys know, we have the ability with, if it doesn't have, if we're not working within the wetlands and there's minimal impact, such as putting stone over dirt, to the water courses and the water that's in the area, because obviously even in your letter, which I also, we don't need to read this in the record, we can just put this is in the record. So we have your letter and there's already described what you're doing, that you're putting stone over dirt and that it, obviously allows the water to pass through naturally, and actually gives it a little bit of lower flow. So, there's no, what we call significant impact, to the area and the wetland itself, so we can, as a board, if we vote to do so, can pass the responsibility to Mr. Thoreau as the agent of the wetlands agent for the town, basically to handle the entire thing without us meeting again. And that would be my recommendation, because obviously, I read your letter, and is well articulated. A reasonable person, and go by the reasonable person standard, based on a reasonable person, you've done everything right. And unfortunately, this occurred, you found out there's wetlands, you still did it right. You stopped everything, you requested the permit, you're here at the meeting. And I personally don't see any further reason to be halting your project, provided that the board agrees. And I'd like to actually put that forward that, I'd like to make a motion that, we allow the agent, based on the limited amount of impact for the work that's being done, to take full responsibility, not responsibility, but take full control of the review of all the activities that are going on the property. And I'll make that motion if anybody wishes a second or not.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Because if we're gonna put it on Joe, and he's the one that knows all this stuff that we don't. If there is a sheet of water, the flow you were talking about that goes across there, who looks at what impacts that? Is that
Well,
you or should that
I
have been
would,
on?
so,
Okay.
if we
I
have.
didn't know if that had to be on the building end or.
No, so if we have, let's say, like, I don't know, this last rainstorm, they were talking like 6 inches of rain, I don't know what we got, it was only, what, 2-3 inches of rain.
Something in London.
If we get some sort of cataclysmic, and it ends up, silting in the wetlands, and I say that term loosely. Or, sediment gets into the water course that runs, behind, through the Gardella property. Well, then we have the authority to deal with that. And if there are significant impacts or whatever, we can ask that they be corrected.
I have a couple questions there. Because we just bought the property, we're not really familiar with what happened prior to us buying it. We did spend a lot of time in the winter time when we had all that snow, monitoring where the water pooled and puddled after it all melted, before we did anything. And we consulted with people to see what the best course of action would be obviously to manage what was already there and what was already existing and happening. And that's why we went the gravel way, because they told us that it wouldn't affect anything that was already existing there. It would, to your point, it would just go pass right through.
Yep.
So I don't know that we're affecting any water flow on the surface.
Yep.
Um,
I don't either.
and
at
I
this
don't know
point.
that
And the
what
septic,
we did is gonna change what was already happening.
Yep.
And there shouldn't be any sediment because it's just gravel. It's gravel.
Well, one of the, again, down the road, one of the things that can be done is, if we do have a cataclysmic rainstorm, which, we're tending to get more of them, these, they call them 100-year storms. They don't come every 100 years, they come every month now.
Water.
You would have the ability to modify things there to correct it. And
Right.
it wouldn't be huge, there are things like called rain, I don't know if you've heard of rain gardens before. Rain garden is basically a water detention feature that
It's funny you
allows,
say that because we've been talking about doing a dry creek on the property somewhere where there's already
Right.
existing low spots.
well, that low
Adding
area
some
there,
Moisture and water.
that'd be the perfect place for a rain garden. What that does is it's an area for that water to slow down, attenuate, and you plant, wetland,
Speaking of
ornamental
wetland, right.
wetland species in there, and you have a little upland area, and then that has an outflow. So in the worst case scenario, if you guys find out that that is a problem, it would be certain, it would be a matter of you working with Mr. Kutu, and Mrs. Gardella to put a low point drain there, whether it's a culvert pipe or whatever, and you could convey that water into that water course, and if that's what's, that something
Ain't gonna
needs to happen, then it could happen.
And
But keep that in mind, because it's,
Right.
it's that much less lawn to mow.
Right. No, of course,
and
that's
it's,
what we talked about too when we first bought the property, because we're,
Yeah.
a little more lawn than we had the other house. We were
Yeah.
trying to find ways to decrease the lawn, and we talked about doing, like I said, the dry creek
Yeah.
area, so.
Yeah.
And we also did discuss other options with, I don't know who it was, Arthur, about either, some kind of, directional thing on the side of the driveway that abuts the western portion of their property, to channel it somewhere else, and we could channel it to a different area that maybe is, like a rain garden, if you were describing. So we put a lot of thought into it to make sure we're not affecting anybody else's property any differently than was already affected before we bought the property.
And I want to apologize to everybody here. I should have done this before I start speaking. You are Ms. Field?
Correct.
You are Mr. Dixon?
Yep.
Did I get it wrong? Dickinson? My apologies. Dickinson. You are Mr. Kotu?
Yep.
And ma'am, your name?
Gardella.
Your
Angela Gardella.
Angela Gardella. Okay. I apologize. I should have identified everybody who's speaking. Ms. Gardella, if you want to,
I just have a comment.
sure.
I've lived there my whole life. I know the water. We already have, they did put some stone dust, and there's already stone dust coming. Just saying.
Okay.
We already had an engineer. Okay, and all that's gonna fail. So redirecting water on somebody else's property in the state of Connecticut is illegal. You guys allowed that. So I'm
Okay.
just saying, that's all.
So the stone dust didn't fail, when we put it on top of the rocks that were there, naturally, when you're working with.
It's all gonna fail. Had an engineer come up and say,
Sir, nobody interrupted you. Please don't interrupt anybody else. Now,
When Arthur was doing the work, some of the dirt did kind of get pushed off the side a little bit. It didn't fail. I've been out there monitoring and walking along that line every day. When it rained, I was out there 4 or 5 times to watch to see what was happening. And I didn't see anything moving. I took pictures, I've documented it. I haven't seen anything move compared to what it was before the rain. So it's packed pretty well. And if there are any spots that are concerns, obviously we're gonna do the best we can to mitigate it and manage it. We don't want to have any problems.
right, and this is what, with the wetland agent, he's there. And he can observe these things in real time rather than we meet once a month.
Right.
So that's where he becomes incredibly more effective than ourselves. Yeah,
Just one last thing. When, I'll say when the big rains come and material will go in, who do I contact?
let's wait until the outcome of this board and then we'll know.
One thing I think, we need to recognize here and, the purview of this board and myself, we're here to protect wetlands. We're here to regulate what goes on in wetlands, what happens to wetlands, impacts to wetlands. Surface drainage between landowners. It's none of our business. It's a civil matter unless it impacts wetlands. So, I want to be very clear on that. We don't want to see water courses silted in. We don't want to see wetlands destroyed. We don't want to see wetlands filled in, but the drainage issues that have been going on between these two properties has been going on for the last 50 years. Water is flowed from this property to their property, and nothing we can do about that. It's the way it is. I deal with this in several towns, to one property A to property B to property C, and they dig trenches and they do anything they can, but unless it's a wetland, it's not our,
It's outside of our
it's
purview.
outside of our purview.
All right, I apologize to Mr. Kocho. I know he had a comment and I didn't get to get back to him before he left. So, having any further comments from the audience? Any questions? Okay, so there is a motion in front
I'll
of it,
second the motion to let.
and there's the second motion to let the agent take over for the board in the matter before us, 566 Beach Pond Road and replacement of a gravel road. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion? Aye. All those opposed? And abstained. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The wetland agent will now be handling the issue at 566 Beach Pond Road. That leaves two other outstanding issues, which is the notice of violation and the cease and desist order. Based on the facts and circumstances that have been presented to us at the board, I would like to make a motion that we rescind the notice of violation and revoke the cease and desist order, so that the property of 566 will go forward as if they knew from the outset that there was wetlands and that they had done the process and everything was correct and complete.
Second. I was trying to, like, why are we even talking about this? So we passed it to Joe. That's why I was like, kind of.
No, I want to rescind the notice of violation and remove the cease and desist. I do not see fault. I do not see any way that you would have known that there was even the potential of a violation based on the amount of times that you spoke to the town, that you had people out. And until he actually dug, he didn't know.
Right.
So, and that's why. So we have the motion on the floor right now is to rescind the notice of violation and remove the cease and desist order from 566 Beach Pond Road. Any further comments or, ma'am?
I would just like to ask that if anybody needs to come to my property, they call first or reach out first.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, that's, yeah, anything else is trespass.
I mean, this has been a revolving door between state police and then there.
Well, the state police can enter your property without.
There's been every municipality there is, has already been walking through the yard.
Okay,
And
I
they
mean,
were
not even
invited- they were
kidding.
invited by us, which is bad.
I completely understand, and that is noted for everyone here. I can't speak to other agencies or outside groups, and yeah, the police actually can enter your property based on a call. Otherwise, no. Okay, so now we're gonna do the vote. All those in favor of rescinding the notice of violation and removing the cease and desist order on 566 Beach Pond Road in Voluntown? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed and abstained? You guys have it. The notice of violation should be rescinded and the cease and desist order should be removed immediately. And I believe that is all of the agenda or all the issues for this particular violation and for this particular matter. Okay, yes, ma'am.
So is now the time to ask who I would call.
So that would be Mr. Thoreau. He is going to be the agent that's going to handle all all the issues for the board on a, immediate basis rather than trying to contact us and waiting for a review and things
Okay,
like that.
thank you.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
If we do tend to get more rain, can I reach out to you and you can kind of walk the property with us?
Absolutely.
And we can kind of keep an eye on things?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would appreciate that actually, if you could do that, because obviously the more voluntary monitoring we have, the easier it is to articulate, the
Right.
good or the bad that's going on.
Right.
So, and correct it in a much more timely manner, than waiting for it to,
All right.
Well,
Like I said in the letter, we're not trying to,
no, everything
trying to
seems
do
to be
everything we
about.
can to,
Did you guys get the silt fence up or no?
no, I didn't get a chance to do it yet.
Came in on Saturday.
No,
Just
I
be,
came
yeah,
in
just
yesterday.
say be cognizant of that, because, we're gonna start getting these crazy rain thunderstorms
Right.
now, and
Yeah, the contractor's on vacation and I ordered it as soon as you asked me to order it,
Yep.
and it didn't come in until yesterday, so.
Yep.
We haven't had a chance to get that
no
yet.
worries. Well, luckily, we didn't get 6 inches of rain.
Right, I was sweating it.
And obviously, ma'am, this is your property in joint, or is this just your property?
This is mine.
Okay, so obviously, because of this issue, now you know that you have wetlands on your property. I'm just giving you a verbal notice that you have wetlands on your property. It's not gonna be annotated anywhere on the state level, other than in this meeting minutes and probably at the town level that you have those. And so if there is any time that you wish to, do anything on your property that would involve wetlands or an upland review area, just know that you have to get, you have to go through this permit process for wetlands. It's obviously not an obvious thing. You may not have known that prior to this event, so, basically it's a kind of a now you know thing.
Absolutely, I understand.
All right, appreciate that one. All right, any other questions from the audience? Hearing none, we can move on. Guys, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Like I said, everything for you guys now is through the agent and Mr. Thoreau. And you can start
Thank you.
this evening. You're good.
So I'll be sending you guys an approval letter, basically.
No fees, no permit.
So
I just wanna make sure-
the fees that were involved in the application process, the town's gonna keep those because we had to approve your application in order to get to where we are.
Well, I didn't pay him yet, so I just want to make sure I come tomorrow and.
We're gonna have to redo this entire meeting. No, I'm just kidding. So,
That wouldn't surprise me.
welcome to government, but no, you're fine. You will have to pay the application
Yeah, no,
fees,
that's why I'm asking. I want to make sure I come down tomorrow to take care of that. So,
Yep.
yeah, okay,
and that's it.
okay.
There's no fines or anything,
No.
obviously. So,
We
there's,
will have a fine schedule, so.
okay, so it's just the application fee, that's it.
Yeah, we have PTSD about water because we owned a building in Warwick that was under 12 feet of water in 2010, and it was a severe repetitive loss property.
The building you
So-
saw on the news all the time, the fish in the toolbox, that was my building.
We're very familiar with
Yeah.
problems with water, so we try to be really cautious and careful of doing anything with it, so.
We appreciate your diligence, we truly do, and appreciate your patience with everything. We know this is, been a surprise for you guys. As I think it's been a surprise for a number of folks. So,
On top of other things.
but anyway, thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you,
and your comments.
And
It was all for me.
I'm-
Okay, is there any other business before the board?
Just one quick comment. I did reach out to Carl Grenier.
Oh, okay, how's that going?
Because he missed the window last year as far as getting
Getting
things
it
done. So I talked to him, he was kind of Carl, reluctant, and I said, well, listen, Carl, you need to get this done this year. This is technically this was a violation. We didn't put, well, I was under the impression that, I could, I had the life of the permit to do it. I said, yeah, it doesn't mean you get to wait for 5 years and then do it. He said, you need to get on it. I think, if it doesn't happen, this July or August, then at our next meeting, we need to close the door on it and say, you have X amount of time. If it's not
Mhm.
done, you're going to court. But he did reach out to John Moran as far as getting an excavator over there and doing things. So I believe he's working on it. But I'm gonna be on it just to, because
Okay.
he did say there was still water in it, which I was kind of surprised because it's been so dry, but after this rain, I'm sure it's full anyway, but I think if he tries it in August, we'll be in good shape as far as having that material removed and get it remediated.
Is there any benefit in us sending a letter stating that
Absolutely.
And I would recommend, and, it's open for discussion, but I recommend the town send, Mr. Grenier a reminder that he is still under, our, we found him, negligent for the violation. And that we are expecting that it will be done and, we will reconvene in September to decide if nothing has been done or if there's no movement forward, that we will simply refer to the attorney, to take it out of our, take it off our plate. Probably we should vote on that. I think it's probably the best way to do so. I'll put a motion forward that the town write a letter to Mr. Grenier reminding him that he has obligations based on the previous violation. And that, if there isn't substantial headway made, and reviewed by the wetlands agent, that, we will be simply referring it to the town attorney.
Second, that.
Okay.
Do we want to quantify that substantial?
I agree. That was the issue, and I believe it was my problem. I believe I'm the one who failed to put a finite time on the completion. Can you quantify it or
Well, I mean, to be a nice guy, I'd say,
no?
be,
No, let's be direct.
I would say.
I think nice guys what got us in trouble.
Yeah, it was, because it went on and went on and went on and went on forever, it was bullshit, but I would say. A year from now. Give him a season,
Give him one season and if it's
that's
not.
me,
completed-
I'm a nice guy.
Hasn't he had a season though?
He has,
He has,
and,
yeah.
Well, August to August is what I'm getting, so maybe. Something happens, John Moran has a heart attack, he can't find a contractor, he's still got next August to get it done.
Are we saying
August of 27.
But
like 100%?
100% completed by,
Done.
Yeah, okay.
Not started, done.
Yeah.
100% completed by August of 27.
Yeah.
Okay, so that substantively changes the motion. So a letter from the town to Mr. Grenier regarding the notice of violation that he has until
August 30.
1 September 2027 to be 100% complete and inspected by the wetlands agent. I need
Does he want to
discussion,
be inspected and approved?
inspected and approved by the
The way he's
wetlands
not
agent.
doing it on August 30th and trying to push Joe to.
Right.
Inspected and approved by 1 September 2027.
Second.
Did you catch that, Crystal?
Yeah,
Because I know it's on the record. but,
yeah, I got it.
So, we have a motion, it's been seconded, no further discussion, any further discussion, no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye, all those against? And abstain, the motion's been carried, so we're asking the town to provide a letter to Carl Grenier regarding the notice of violation and subsequent board decision that he had to have this taken care of, and we're giving him a window not later than 1 September 2027 to be completed and approved by the wetlands agent. Or else it'll be given over to the town attorney. I think we did that seems overly generous. We can go with that. Any other business? Hearing none, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn,
Second.
7:10.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed. The